It's 8 p.m. in Banjul. This is the news. First, the headlines. Free at last, thanks to a presidential mercy. 7 young Gambians walk out of Janjanbureh prison after being pardoned by President Jammeh. The race for the vacant Lower Salem National Assembly seat hots up as the ruling APRC and rival NRP candidates file in their nomination papers. Turkish fighter jets pound ISIS positions in Syria, while Ankara intensifies a major offensive against Kurdish rebels in northern Iraq. And anxiety grows among America's moviegoers in the wake of a mass shooting in theaters across the country. Well, these and other stories coming ahead this half hour. I am Winifred Nicole Hodibat. Thanks for joining us. The President, His Excellency Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jammeh Babili Mansa, has received the congratulatory message from Mohammed Muhmin Mahmoud Ibrahim, Regional Director of the Munazamat Al-Dawa Al-Islamiyah, and the message reads, I wish to take this opportunity on behalf of our organization to wish Your Excellency a blessed and prosperous 21st anniversary, and may Allah shower His mercy and blessings on you, the Gambia, and the entire Muslim Ummah. Please accept, Your Excellency, my profound thanks and appreciation. May peace, mercy, and protection of Allah be upon you. Celebrations marking the 21st anniversary of the 22nd July Revolution continue with an Islamic conference in Kanilai. The event offers the platform for religious leaders to talk on various topics of relevance to society. We hope to bring you more on that story in our subsequent news bulletins. 7 young Gambian men who were serving time for drug trafficking have spent the first night with their families after being pardoned by the President, His Excellency Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jammeh Babili Mansa. Francis Mendy was outside Janjanbureh prison for GRTS, and he now reports.
The ex-convicts were not looking forward to rejoining their families and loved ones before the end of their custodial sentences and could therefore hardly believe that they were going home. What is more remarkable about the unprecedented development is that the 7 former inmates who, according to them, have learned valuable lessons, albeit the hard way, can contribute meaningfully to the welfare of their families and the development of the nation by extension.
I'm thanking the President for this day. He has pardoned us this big day like this Friday. So what I really should tell the President is to thank him because of this. This thing is not an easy thing. And today is a big day to give us this life, another new life in life, because of life is full of mistakes. But we know what we did, and we know what we see inside the jail, and we will never do that again. I have 2 kids, and I miss them 2 years. So what I really should say that I'm thanking the President. This is another life. To sit with my kids. Today, if I go and see my kids, it's another big day for me.
Not taken in by the promises of the former inmates, the Deputy Governor, Central River Region, Malang Saibo Kamara, hammered home a very salient message.
And what I advise the young people is, this house is not a punishment area. It's an area for change of attitude. And I think they have learned a lot of lessons. I always tell people as well that the eye, the ear are very important on the human life. What you see somebody do and it is wrong and he gets hell out of it, don't do it. You may not see it, but you may hear it. That somebody must have done something wrong and he has got a punishment out of it. You will not do that again. And I warn them that in the next 10 years, they must avoid doing anything wrong that will bring them before the law. If anything is done wrong and they are brought before the law will take its full force on them.
The number that benefited from the President's generosity in Janjanbureh is small compared to that of Mile 2 and Old Joshua. The Deputy Governor looked at the global figure and summed up President Jammeh's magnanimity with this comparison.
I read one hadith which says, one day, one of the disciples asked the Prophet, Holy Prophet, how much does the Almighty love his servants? The Holy Prophet quoted that when a woman gets pregnant for 9 months, and this woman goes to labor, as soon as she delivers the baby, somebody snatches this baby from her. She will be in a dilemma and will be worried to how much she had suffered under the pregnancy and the labor. It would just be like if you bring that child one day and show the mother that this is your child. The love the mother will have for that child at that moment is the love that President Jammeh have for all the people in the Gambia and those living in the Gambia.
They are taking their first few steps as free men, eager to travel back to their respective places of abode and perhaps wondering what next step to take in the process of picking up the pieces of their lives and making up for lost time, presumably away from crime and criminal activities of any nature, taking into account the consequences that await defaulters. Francis Mendy, GRTS.
Scores of volunteers Saturday stormed President Jammeh's Yundum farm for a weeding, plowing and sowing exercise. Louis Mendy watched the volunteers in action and reports. They are personnel of the Joint Security Forces motivated by the National Food Security Agenda.
At the entrance of the Banjul International Airport exists this massive farm owned and designed by President Jammeh to promote national food security. Very supportive in the crusade are the security forces. In their numbers, they arrive to voluntarily support in the weeding, plowing, and sowing.
It's the Gambia Armed and Security Services, which is made up of the Gambia Armed Forces, the police, the immigration, fire and rescue services, GRA, and all the other security services that are in this country.
The volunteers said they were motivated by the clarion call for food self-sufficiency.
Our Commander-in-Chief, His Excellency Sir Professor Dr. Alhaji A.J.J. Jammeh Babili Mansa, Commander-in-Chief, has provided the required logistic for the men. They are well fed, the breakfasts have been served and are waiting to have their lunch, and other refreshments will follow immediately after the lunch. So our Commander-in-Chief have taken care of the welfare. This is why you can see how active everybody is in the farm.
His Excellency the President, who is our Commander-in-Chief, has been calling on Gambians to go back to the land. And he did not only stop at calling us to go back to the land, but he led the way. So if he leads, like us in the military, if your commander leads, you have no choice but to follow. So that is why we are here. This is our farm. You know, this belongs to Gambians, and it belongs to everybody.
Though still at the sowing stage, farm manager Major Balle is hopeful of bumper harvest.
Why do you choose groundnut?
Because the area is very fertile, and then the soil is very rich. For it has been here following for so many years. So if you put groundnuts there, the yield will be very, very high, and then you are going to have very, very good nuts. They can be even quality seed. They can be nuts that you can use for seeds, because the soil is very fertile, it's very rich, and then we're going to have a lot of groundnuts.
Volunteers said food security breeds freedom. Another reason they said will continue to lure them to the Kanilai farms. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
The community of Madiana is among the frontline villages helping actualize the President's Vision 2016 Food Self-Sufficiency Drive. Residents of the Kombo Central Settlement have descended on vast farmland for a massive cultivation.
President Jammeh's Vision 2016 initiative continues to draw the participation of Gambians from across the country, and the latest to join the bandwagon are the people of Madiana. The community stormed this vast land for a massive plowing exercise.
Well, because, as I said, I don't know exactly, because this is my second time to come here. And I cannot even tell you the size of the farm, because maybe if I tell you the size of it, I may be right or I may be wrong. But one thing what I know is a very, 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 very big farm. Big farm. Because where you stand here is up to, there's a boundary between them and Tanje, which is very, very far. So I can just assure you that it's a big one, because this farm, we want to do it for our 2016 part of the farms, 2016. That's why we are trying to make an experiment for this year to see what's going to happen. But I know we will be okay.
The Alcalde of Madiana, Musa Mani, said his community is in full support of the President's Vision 2016 initiative, and that the village has identified a vast area of land ideal for cultivation of all crops. He said this rice farm by the village women marks the start of a series of farming activities they intend to do in due course. Speaking on behalf of the women folk, Binta Baji said their initiative is in response to the President's Back to the Land call, which he said, if nurtured, will provide a sustainable livelihood for the citizenry. We are always behind the President, and so we will always follow his instructions, he added. Other speakers included Usman Kamara, APRC chairman of Madiana, and Tombon Jeju, both of whom were unanimous in expressing their willingness to fulfill the mission, while thanking the women for taking a leading role in this drive. For JRTS News, this is Babakar Senghor.
Officials of the National Environment Agency have come out quickly to deny suggestions of 2-month freeze on the ban on the manufacture, buying and selling of plastic bags in the Gambia. Famara Kanye has more on that.
After a presidential directive from the State House on the 1st of July 2015 banning the manufacture or import, use or selling of plastic bags in the Republic of the Gambia, rumors have been going around town, mainly from business entities and individuals, speculating 2 months ban lift on plastic bags. This has been declared by the National Environment Agency officials as a criminal offense, germinated by few who still want to engage in the industry.
The plastic bag have been totally banned. It is not lifted. There is no executive communication that said that it has been lifted.
A joint task force, including security officers, went round the streets of Banjul to confiscate plastic bags from supermarkets along the Kairava Avenue.
The ban is still in place. The President has signed the ban order and it is being implemented.
The patrol team crisscrossed the streets of the Serekunda market, seizing plastic bags. The exercise was witnessed by the police as plastic bags are being confiscated from business entities still indulging in the trade.
For us, our part as security officers, we will make sure, whatever it costs, we'll make sure that the law is enforced.
The general public is hereby informed that plastic bags remain banned in the Gambia. From manufacturers to importers, buyers and sellers are all forbidden to use the materials. For GRTS News, I am Famara Kanye.
That story by Famara Kanye takes us to a first break, but we'll be back with news from outside the Gambia. Don't go away. Rising sea level is one of the major environmental challenges facing developing countries, such as the Gambia. Experts have given stark warnings about what will happen and how certain cities will disappear if something is not done to avert a major environmental problem. So be aware of climate change.
Banjul, Gambia. This West African city is nestled up beside the Atlantic Ocean and faces the threat of rising sea levels. On top of that is the possibility of coastline erosion, which increases the chance that the city will submerge underwater. Even worse is the prospect that the rise in sea levels could disrupt the city's rice production, which is a vital part of their economy.
Welcome back. Turkey is ramping up the fight against ISIS. The country's warplane have targeted the group in northern Syria for a second day. The government says it hopes to clear the militants and create a safe zone for Syrian refugees. As CNN Nick Patton Walsh reports, Turkey is also taking aims at Kurdish in northern Iraq.
rapid changes in Turkey's policy towards northern Syria in just the last few days here. Key, just recently, Turkish officials talking about the potential for, quote, a safe haven, a safe zone in northern Syria, presumably into which the hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees currently in camps in Turkey could perhaps return. That's more an ambition, though, realistically, one the Turkish officials talk about in the context of when and if ISIS is pushed out of those areas, naturally they would become safe enough for those refugees to return. A complex ambition, but one that they seem to be backing up here with the use of airplanes, jets, hitting ISIS targets, but also targets of the Kurds inside northern Iraq and Syria too. Key because while the Kurds and ISIS are totally separate groups, Turkey also perceives some Kurdish groups as a threat, and they're hitting the PKK. Now that's complex because also allies of the PKK, other Kurdish groups, are in fact the awkward ground troops fighting ISIS with the cover of coalition airplanes at the same time. But one thing is not in doubt here, as Turkish troops apparently also launch artillery strikes against ISIS inside Syria, is that Turkey has very much dropped its policy of laissez-faire that some critics said it had when dealing with ISIS. Remember, in the past months, ISIS have used Turkish territory to take people and materiel into Syria, where they've set up their self-declared caliphate. That's changed now. Turkey quite clear they're the enemy, quite clear they're going to use their military against it. The scope of their ambition could require tens of thousands of troops, be a longer prospect potentially, but it does now have the potential of one of the key neighbours of Syria, a NATO ally, being thrust full headlong into this conflict. There are other elements here too that are important to point out. Nearly 600 people arrested in a terror arrest sweep across all of Turkey. Turkish officials saying they've had their eye on some of them for a while, but others actually moving against them right now. Also, the potential for US forces to use a base in Incirlik in the south of Turkey too. That could be used for drones, could be used for airstrikes inside Syria too. That could really speed the pace of NATO and American operations inside that area. A lot changing, but the key thing to look out for here is the potential for ISIS retaliation. Activists already reporting speeches in Aleppo in which ISIS are encouraging people potentially to take the fight to Turkey. We could see asymmetrical terror-type attacks in southern Turkey. We saw one recently in Suruc targeting Kurds. That could spread. That's the price Turkey may pay for its increased intervention here. But definitely those who used to claim Turkey was not off the bench in the fight against ISIS now are seeing a very stark change in policy. Nick Payton-Walsh, CNN, Beirut.
And to news just in. The August 6th National Assembly by-election to fill the vacant Lower Salem National Assembly seat will be contested by the ruling Alliance for Patriotic Reorientation and Construction and the opposition National Reconciliation Party, APRC's Kaba Toure and NRP's Modu Bambagay filled in their nomination papers on Thursday. Francis Mendy was in Janjanbureh, and this is his report.
Campaigning will start on Sunday, but one thing is abundantly clear. The battle lines have already been drawn. The candidate for the opposition National Reconciliation Party and supporters made it to the nomination center shortly after Friday prayers. Soon after, the process of poring over the stash of documents prospective candidates need to produce before receiving the clean bill of health swung into action, with Independent Electoral Commission Commissioner Ali Momar Njai leading the effort. After a couple of minutes, Momodu Bambagay received the handshake from IEC officials, signaling that he has sailed through the process. The political novice who has never held public office but taught for 3 years before switching to self-employment is promising to ensure fair distribution of the development package. The ambience that accompanied the APRC camp was reminiscent of that of Victory Day, perhaps a pointer to the level of confidence among the rank and file of the party and the candidate himself. The scrutiny that followed the arrival of the APRC delegation was also hate-free. Kaba Toure is no stranger to the business of the National Assembly, for he served as Lower Salem's representative from 2007 to 2012.
If I don't go campaign, I know I'll have victory, because I'm not a stranger in Salem. I know what I have done in Salem since 2007 to 2012. I have done so many things for my people in Lower Salem constituency, and I continue to put more effort, and I will continue to reunite them to the APRC, and I will push forward to see to it that we have victory and we have development in Lower Salem.
Ruling party bigwigs descended on the island town to show solidarity and boost the candidates' morale. Balagaba Jahumpa was quick to refer to today's development track record.
I kept saying that the politics of the APRC has been made easy by His Excellency the President, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Abdul Aziz. James Junkung Jameji Lanka, Babili Mansa. The record of the APRC is there in terms of development projects that have made a difference in the lives of the Gambian people. So therefore the Gambian people, their political consciousness is very high at the moment, and they know which party can advance this nation, and that is the APRC. Concerning our candidate, Honorable Kaba Toure, he was a National Assembly member before, and he is well off with National Assembly proceedings. Not only that, but his record also when he was National Assembly member. Although he's from Balangar, 90% of the projects he took were to Kawur. He has helped the people of Kawur, he has helped the people of Balangar. So he is not only a winnable candidate, but he will also be a productive candidate for Lower Salom.
Mayor Yankuba Koli anchored his speech on the APRC's People and Development Centered politics.
Victory has already been assured. If you look at the Almighty Allah, has started to show, everybody that APRC is going to win this election by a very good margin, that we are the party that are in love with the Gambian people, and the Gambian people love the party that we stand for.
The candidates have 10 days to crisscross the political territory that is up for grabs to increase their share of the vote after campaign itineraries have been harmonized by the Independent Electoral Commission to avoid conflict before observing what Election Commission officials call a cooling-off period on the eve of polling day, which is August 6th. Francis Mendy, GRTS.
Authorities in the United States are learning more about the gunman who opened fire in Louisiana movie theater on Thursday. Vigils and memorials are being held for the 2 women and 9 others wounded. Authorities say John Russell has had a troubled past, legally and mentally, but the gun used was purchased legally. They are still trying to find out why he started shooting. This, of course, is not the first time a theater has been targeted in the United States. The Louisiana came nearly 3 years to the day after a gunman killed 12 people in Areola, Colorado. Tom Foreman explains why the moviegoers are so vulnerable.
Colorado shootings, there was a real effort to bolster security in movie theaters all across this country, but it didn't really amount to a whole lot because movie theaters remain uniquely soft targets. In the chaos of the latest theater shootings, a sadly common theme. Some people heard the shots, heard the screams, and thought nothing of it.
They heard pops, and they thought it was maybe part of the movie or something until they noticed the flashes, and that's when people realized that something was going on.
It is an understandable mistake. Out of last year's top 10 films, 8 were action adventures like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, with lots of shooting, crashing, and yelling, all amplified by state-of-the-art audio systems. In Colorado, The Dark Knight Rises was rolling when the gunfire began.
I thought it was just, really good sound effect, something like that. But my wife, she nudged me and said, no, that's loud. That's way too loud for something that should be in the movie.
Another problem, darkness. Police say the Lafayette gunman clearly took advantage of all eyes being on the bright screen when he started shooting, using the darkness to hide his actions and identity.
We think that he intended on leaving. He did exit the theater and try and blend in with the crowd, who was also leaving very quickly.
Hi, how you doing?
And lastly, most theaters have limited security, even while dealing with millions of people and films that are sometimes emotionally charged. When Boys in the Hood opened in 1991, more than 24 theaters nationwide had violent outbreaks. Today, there are nearly 43,000 screens in the U.S. and Canada, and almost 230 million people go to at least one film a year. all with little, if any, security. Some people in the movie business suggest these remain very rare events, and it may be almost impossible to guard against all of them. Nonetheless, there have been some lawsuits based on some of these shooting incidents, and that may be urging the industry to at least try a little bit harder.
We take our second break now. Sports is next. The major environmental challenges facing developing countries, such as the Gambia. Experts have given stark warnings about what will happen and how certain cities will disappear if something is not done to avert a major environmental problem. So be aware of climate change.
Banjul, Gambia. This West African city is nestled up beside the Atlantic Ocean and faces the threat of rising sea levels. On top of that is the possibility of coastline erosion, which increases the chance that the city will submerge underwater. Even worse is the prospect that the rise in sea levels could disrupt the city's rice production, which is a vital part of their economy.
Welcome back. For Bayern Munich's new boy, Arturo Vidal, last month has been quite successful for the midfielder, leading Chile to their first ever Copa American title and making a big money move to the German champions for the Italian side, Juventus. But as we hear in this report from DWTV, it's not always fun and games for Chile's national hero.
Station in the Chilean town of Buin. It was here that he crashed his car during the group stages of this year's Copa America. Vidal had been speeding and driving under the influence. As part of the punishment, a court ordered the player to donate a signed jersey to the local fire department. The superintendent had this to say. We had a meeting in which Vidal handed us the jersey as the prosecutor had requested. The conversation with him was very nice. He thanked the firefighters for their work, and we invited him to come visit us again. Vidal hasn't come off as easily as you think. The judge ordered Bayern's new star to hold 2 motivational speeches to inmates at a prison and donate 100 football kits and equipment to needy children, on top of the required community service.
We now join the Weather Forecast Office for the day's weather outlook.
Everything as you know it starts here. That simple promise of a harvest after planting is nature's service to the community that you and I are a part of. We carry on bonding and sharing because the feeling to serve is mutual. But that promise between us, the sun and the land, is what gives us the hope to carry on. And as it was in the beginning, we started with a belief to serve. Elton, a new vision of service.
Hello, this is the weather update from the Central Forecast Office. But first, we will begin with a summary of the day's outlook, where we have experienced variably cloudy, warm and humid conditions across the entire country during the day. Now tonight, the weather is going to continue to be variably cloudy, warm and humid, with thunder showers over most parts of the country, especially during the early hours of the morning. Now tomorrow is going to be variably cloudy, warm and humid as well. Now during this period, you will experience southwesterly winds, and this will be running at a speed of 9 to 18 kilometers per hour. Temperatures during this period will vary between a minimum of 22 degrees Celsius, and this will extend to a maximum of 33 degrees Celsius respectively. And at 11 a.m. we'll have a low tide of 0.7 meter and 0.5 meter at 11 p.m. At 5 a.m. we'll have a high tide of 1.4 meter and 1.3 meter at 5 p.m. Now wave height will go up to about 0 to 1 meter high, and this will be westerly swells. At 6:45 the sun will rise and set at 19:38. Thank you for joining us and good night.
And before we take leave of you, a recap of the day's main stories. Free at last, thanks to a presidential mercy. 7 young Gambians have walked out of Janjanbureh prison after being pardoned by President Jammeh. The race for the vacant Lower Salem National Assembly seat is hotting up as the ruling APRC and rival NRP candidates file in their nomination papers. Turkish fighter jets have been pounding ISIS positions in Syria, while Ankara intensifies a major offensive against Kurdish rebels in northern Iraq. And anxiety is growing among America's moviegoers in the wake of mass shooting in theaters across the country. Well, that was all in this edition of the News at 8. Thanks for the pleasure of your company. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. But before we take leave of you, part 2 of the presidential pardon for 229 prison inmates shall air at 8:45 on GRTS today.